Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to start my November reading vlog. It is November 1st and I do still have a couple of my October TBR books to clean up, but I wanted to let you know what I'm currently reading. Okay, so what I'm reading right now is Deathless Divide. This is the second book in the Dread Nation duology by Justina Ireland, and I'm almost done with it. I have about 90 pages left, so I'm pretty sure I will finish it today or tomorrow. And it's always kind of nice to start a month off by finishing a book, so this will be quite satisfying. I'll talk more about it once I've finished it. I already talked about this in my October reading vlogs, so if you're interested you can go check that out as well. And then I have started this collection of of stories by Henry James. So this one has Turn Off the Screw and Other Ghost Stories. I have read the first two, wasn't like super impressed, but I still want to continue on with the rest of these stories and then eventually also read the Turn of the Screw. And yeah, we'll see how that goes. This is probably a book I will pick up here and there while I read other things. And then lastly, for my audiobook, I'm currently listening to Payback's a Witch. I always forget the author's name because I'm bad with like audiobook authors, but I have about 8 hours left of that one. It's very fun so far. I am enjoying it, and that one basically follows a town of witches. There is 4 founding families, and the main character is the scion of the family that does the kind of bookkeeping. So they preserved all the history and they made a spell book and stuff like that. And then the other 3 families compete for the kind of magical mayor post. And yeah, basically one of the scions of these families is the ex of the main character, and he broke her heart, and now she finds out that he also broke a lot more hearts. And I think this is also a female romance, and I do like the love interest a lot so far. She is amazing, and yeah, it's just fun, it's fluffy. It still has a little bit of that Halloween feel because it's witches, but I just needed something more cozy now going into November, so that's perfect. Yeah, that's all the books I'm currently reading, and now I will shut up and get to reading my books. So today is the 3rd of November and I wanted to give you a quick update. Last night I finished the Deathless Divide because I didn't have any internet. I usually do all my cooking channel stuff on Tuesdays, which was yesterday, but my internet did not work, so I could read. So I finished this last night. I decided to give this sequel 4 stars. I gave the first one 5 stars. There are a couple of things that have bothered me about this first book. This basically follows 2 Black girls in an alternate history where after the Civil War in America there have been zombies. So basically there's this huge zombie plague that started during the Civil War, and all people that die come back undead. And this follows 2 girls. The first one just follows one of these girls mainly, who are trained to kill these zombies. Basically, there are these special schools that train Black kids to kill zombies, and it's you know, an alternate history that still depicts the kind of racial divides, the racism of this time back then, while also being super fast-paced and just you know, very exciting, very good storylines, action-packed and stuff like that. So the first one definitely was a winner for me. The second one started out great. The first part of this was still amazing, but then there's a time jump of 1.5 years, and I just really don't like that. It totally pulled me out of the story. I felt like when we came back to these characters after such a long time, they had changed dramatically, and we didn't really know why. So that's always unfortunate. And then also, I think this book was written before the whole pandemic situation, or like in the early stages of the pandemic, I guess. But this discusses vaccines a lot, and I totally get the point that is made here, that in history there were a lot of unethical medical experiments done on people of color, on Black people, on Indigenous people. And I totally see what this is trying to do. But on the other hand, you know, living in the pandemic times now and seeing how many people are not vaccinated, even though they had a chance to do it for like over half a year now, realistically, this also reads a little bit different. Obviously, this has nothing to do with COVID, but I think, you know, we are now in a time period where vaccine hesitancy is very, very dangerous, because the people that are dying from COVID right now are mostly unvaccinated people. So while I totally get what this book is trying to say about the vaccines, it is also a little bit hard to read, just because of the situation we're in right now. But overall, as I said, I liked it. It's just that this huge time jump just pulled me out of the story a little bit, and I had a hard time getting into the second part. And also one thing that I was a little bit sad about is that in the first book, the relationship between the main character Jane and her mother plays a very, very big role, and then in the second book it just vanishes, and that was a little bit unfortunate as well. It just didn't really flow that well, I guess. I really liked the addition of Catherine, so her perspective was amazing. I think it's great to see ace representation also in these more like historical settings, because obviously LGBTQIA plus people have existed all throughout history, and I just felt like in general the diversity in this book was done really well, where it never felt forced. It always felt very, very natural, and you know, just like diverse people you would meet on a journey like that, and I really enjoyed that about this book. So that's done. And the next book I'm gonna start now is Pompeii by Mary Beard. It is nonfiction November, so I thought I will read some nonfiction that I still have. I got this for my birthday. I love Pompeii. It's such an interesting place to visit, and I just want to learn more. I think I'm going to read this for a separate reading vlog for Nonfiction November though, so I will probably not update here a lot, but just so you know, I'm reading this. I also have about 6 hours left of my audiobook Payback's A Witch, and I'm enjoying that one a lot. It has exactly the right vibes that I was looking for. So reading's going good. So today is the 5th of November. I thought I'd give you a quick update. I'm now almost 50% through Pompeii, and I'm really, really liking it. I didn't have internet the last 3 evenings because apparently someone in my building is disturbing it with some kind of, I don't know, some kind of thing that disturbs my telephone and my internet, and they're promising to fix it by today, so we'll see about that. But since I didn't have any internet for the whole evenings 3 times in a row, I had a lot of time for reading, so that's how I've been making my way through Pompeii so fast. Apart from that, I have less than 3 hours left of my audiobook Payback's A Witch. I'm very much enjoying it. I'm having a lot of fun, and I think I will finish it on the weekend. One thing that is bothering me a little bit though is the whole Russian thing. Like, the love interest is supposed to be a descendant of Baba Yaga, so they have this kind of like Russian family history, and that one is just, oh, it's very cringe. So there was a scene when we learned that the full name of the love interest is Natalia, or Natalie. It's two versions of the same name. And so her being called Talia doesn't make any sense if you're Russian, I think, because in my opinion, in my family, because I have some Russian family, the nickname for Natalia would be Natasha and not Talia. And so, I mean, it makes sense. They've been living in the US for like centuries, but since they're playing off that Russian heritage so much, I think it would have been cool to have a little bit more of the Russian names represented. So yeah, that feels always a little bit. But we also met her like ancestor in this scene, and it was like very fun. Especially when she was like, oh yeah, when you're the scion of this family, you get a birthday visit from her ghost, her ancestor's ghost, like every year. And I was like, oh well, you're like 5 years old and the ghost of your ancestor appears in front of you, and it's like, hey, happy birthday. And her like name was the Dread Lady. So she's not a very like no, she is charismatic, but not a very friendly person. So that whole idea was very funny to me. So yeah, it's a very, very fun book, and I'm glad to see that there will be more. This is the first book in a probably companion book series, so yeah, I'll definitely pick up the second one. If it hopefully comes out next year, we'll see. But that's my reading so far, and now I have to head out and get my hair cut. It's time for an update. Today is the 9th of November, and I finished a book, I started a book, I made progress in a book, and I want to start a new book. So lots is going on. The book that I finished was my audiobook, Payback the Witch by Lana Harper. I finished that last night on audio and I loved it. I gave it 4 stars. I'm not a romance reader, so I'm always a bit hesitant to go into these books, but this one was really fun. I was really in the mood for something cozy and fluffy, and this had the added bonus of being about witches and being a sapphic romance, and it totally hit the tone for me. I really enjoyed it. I think the mixture of the romance plotline and the more fantastical elements was really, really good. It actually had more of a plot than I expected, so that was definitely great. And yeah, I had a good time with it. I think you've heard about this book by now because a lot of people were reading it in October, and it's definitely worth your time. So if you like romance, if you like witches and stuff like that, I think this is a good book to pick up. I also started a new audiobook, and that is The Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Boulay, I believe. I always forget the names if I can't see them on a physical book, but this is a very hyped book. For some reason, I had thought it was fantasy, so I was quite surprised when I looked it up, considering to start reading it, because, you know, it is the month of Indigathon, so I thought this would fit quite well. And I thought it was a thriller. So I think it definitely fits the autumn vibes. I was very excited to start it. I am less than 10% in, so I can't really talk about it too much yet, but I am having fun so far. I'm really liking the tone and the writing style. I think I will really like the main characters, so that's great. And yeah, I don't really know what to say about it yet because I'm still kind of falling into the world and the story, but from what I can gather, we're following a girl. I have not remembered her name yet. Donis, I think it is. And from what I can tell, she is the daughter of two people who were not supposed to be together. I think they are from different tribes or something like that. I am not that well versed with indigenous people in the US, so it is a little bit hard to figure things out, but you definitely get the sense that her parents were not supposed to be together, that the families of her parents had very different views on the world and still do, and she's kind of in the middle of that. Her father then married another woman and also had a child with that woman, which is what the main character considers her brother. So even though this family has a little bit of more complex structure, it's still very close, and I really, really like that, since my family is like a very messed up structure as well. I always like reading about unconventional families. And I really like that she still considers this guy her brother, even though they don't share the mom, and they seem to have a good relationship, whatever you consider a good relationship between siblings. But yeah, I really like that aspect. So far, I'm not really sure where the thriller aspect will go, and I don't want to spoil myself, so I'm fine with that. We're just following, you know, the setup of the story, meeting the main character, meeting her family. She was planning on studying in Michigan, I believe. Again, geography in the US, not my strong suit, but apparently Michigan is far away from where she lives. I think she lives at the border to Canada somewhere. Just not that great at all of these US related things. But she decided to skip or to not go through with her plan just yet, because she wants to support her mother, who had recently some tragic things happen in her life, and so she decided to stay for a little longer and start studying at a university nearby. And I think that's basically the setup of the story, and from here it will probably go into interesting places. This is a very hyped book, and it is already supposed to be a Netflix movie or TV show that will be produced by the Obamas. So yeah, I just want to see where this story is going. So far, I'm very optimistic that this is gonna be a very good book. So we'll see about that. One quick mention, I'm still making my way through Pompeii by Mary Beard. I'm now on page 259. So yeah, in the last third of that. And then I also think I will start a book today or tomorrow, because I want to do a buddy read with my partner. He's gonna listen to the audiobook, and I got the physical book from the library, and that would be Klara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. My partner had asked me whether we wanted to buddy read a book, because he saw me do it with other friends and he thought it would be fun. So I thought this book would be a good place to start, because he really likes sci-fi and I really like Kazuo Ishiguro, so this is a good combination, I think. From what I gather, this book follows a artificial intelligence who is supposed to be a companion to a human, and we follow her when she is in the store about to be sold to someone. And yeah, we'll see. I don't really have a clear picture of what this book is about, but it sounds interesting. I really trust Kazuo Ishiguro to write an interesting novel about AIs, and that's my reading for now. I'm starting to feel a little bit of, you know, cravings for some sugar in my blood, so I'm gonna sit down now. It's already late in the afternoon, and I think I will have a nice tea and relax a little bit. So it is the 11th of November, and just a quick update on my audiobook Firekeeper's Daughter. This one I'm now over 25% through. I'm really loving it. It's amazing. It starts out not slow, but quite as a YA contemporary feel. You meet the characters, you meet their families and friends, you learn about some tragedies of the past. But then, when the kind of crime thriller aspect gets into the story, the shift is so sudden. It's not that I didn't see it coming, because obviously, you know, something bad is gonna happen. Probably also depends on what you read about the book beforehand, but it totally caught me off guard. One thing I really don't like about a lot of more YA feeling thrillers is that you feel like there's nothing at stake. With this book, the stakes are high. Like, oh my god. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I spent the whole day at work thinking about it because, yeah, I read this kind of, I don't want to call it a twist. It's not really a twist, but like the catalyst of the story right before I got to work. And yeah, pretty amazing. I really like it. I really love the main character, and it's just so well written. So yeah, I can't wait to tell you more when I get more into the book. So it is the 12th of November and update time. Last night I finished reading Pompeii by Mary Beard. I read this for a separate reading vlog, so I will talk more about that in that vlog. But I decided to give it 4 stars and I really enjoyed it. And this is my first nonfiction book of the month done. Then I also started a new book last night, and that was Klara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. Now, I think I talked about this in my last update as well. I managed to read the first 20 pages and I was very intrigued by it. I think it's very interesting how Kazuo Ishiguro manages to make you feel quite a lot within these first couple of pages. I really felt like I could identify with the main character, Klara, I guess, even though she is an artificial intelligence. And yeah, I'm very intrigued to read more. I'm buddy reading this with my partner, so we will wait for each other whenever we finish a part. So right now I read the first half of the first part, so I will read the rest later today and then wait for him to catch up so we can discuss it. And so, since I have more reading time probably today, I also want to start my second book for nonfiction November, and that is gonna be The Five. This by Hallie Rubenhold, and this is a book about the women that were killed by Jack the Ripper. This is looking at what their lives would have been like, and I think the author just took time to investigate these women more closely to reduce the stigma that they were just prostitutes. So I'm very intrigued to read this, and I will read it for the separate reading vlog as well. So we'll see how it goes. I hope that this will be a faster read, because you know, time is flying by and I want to read as much as possible in November. I'm also still loving my audiobook, The Firekeeper's Daughter. I'm not quite sure how far into it I am right now. I think I have about 9 hours left. So yeah, I'm just loving that book. It's so good. It's really great. I don't want to repeat myself over and over, but that's just how I feel. Also, I think one thing that I got wrong in my first update, and I haven't corrected it yet, is that the main character is or her parents rather, were a white woman and an indigenous man, I believe. So I think I got that wrong at the beginning, because I wasn't quite sure what the family relations were. It's a little bit more confusing in the beginning, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So yeah, I just wanted to correct that. But yeah, amazing book. I really enjoy it, and I think it's gonna be It's gonna be good, yeah. So today is the 14th of November. We're almost halfway through the month and I can't believe it. Like next weekend I will decorate for Christmas, which is crazy to me. But I have a quick update. I am now 160 pages into the 5 and I'm really enjoying this book a lot. And I also finished part 1 in Klara and the Sun, and today I'm planning on reading part 2. So yeah, I'm very intrigued to see where the story goes. And then also I have 6 hours left in my audiobook, The Firekeeper's Daughter, and that one is just so good. I can't get over how good this book is. I will probably finish it next week, and I do have a very strong suspicion at least about one person who's involved. There's this one person where it is made quite obvious that the main character thinks that they're involved, but I'm not quite sure about that person, but I have another person where I'm really quite sure that they're somehow involved in this, so it will be interesting to see whether I'm right about it. But yeah, the book is just such a good balance between the murder mystery and then a lot of also societal themes, and I'm missing the English word right now, I don't know why. But you know, just some issues are brought up that I think are very important to talk about, especially when you have a book that focuses a lot on Native Americans and then also the drug crisis. And this book is set in the 2000s, like the earlier 2000s, I think. So it is definitely a little bit historical, but I always have a hard time saying that when it's like maybe 15 years ago or something. But yeah, definitely feels a little bit, you know, historical in that sense that it also talks about the drug crisis in the US and stuff like that. So that's really interesting. And then also it has this really angsty, very emotional back and forth romance, which I do enjoy. I think it's so interesting that with the guy character, you always have the same feelings as the main character, because sometimes when you read these like kind of hate to love things, you think that the guy is sexy from the start and it doesn't really change. But with this one, I hate and love the guy character in every scene. Like, I think it's really well done that you're like, he may be hot, but he's also an ass in so many scenes. So yeah, I really like the way that is done. And I can't wait to talk more about this book because I'm obviously really loving it. So that's it. It's book haul time. Oh, it's so beautiful. So last night I read part 2 in Klara and the Sun. I'm still really enjoying this book, and it definitely gives you a very claustrophobic sense because a lot of this takes place in closed spaces. So first you're in the store and then you're in a house in the country where there's nothing really around. Also, the children, very creepy. I'm very intrigued to learn more about what's going on there. But yeah, this is definitely a very interesting read and has this sinister undertone, but you can't really put your finger on it. So yeah, I'm a little bit more than a third of the way through this now, and I'm buddy reading this, so I will wait for my partner to finish part 3 and then read that and update you on it. But I'm very glad we picked this up together. I think we're both enjoying it a lot. And then with my audiobook, Firekeeper's Daughter, I'm in the last parts right now. So we are at the scene where the evil person explains why they did what they did, which I think in this book actually makes sense. sometimes, you know, when you have these James Bond moments when the villain explains his whole scheme and why he's doing it and stuff, it feels a bit forced, but I feel like in this book it definitely does make sense. So yeah, I'll probably finish that today or tomorrow. So yeah, right now I think it will get a very high rating because I'm really enjoying that book as well. Also, the Goodreads Choice Awards have been released now. I guess they're late this year. Someone said that usually they're much earlier. But yeah, this morning I looked through all the categories and voted on the books that I've actually read. It's not that many. I felt like I read quite a few new releases, but not a lot of those showed up. But yeah, I rated on the obvious ones like Ace of Spades, The Firekeeper's Daughter, The Lost Apothecary, which I really enjoyed. So yeah, we'll see. I always think it's quite interesting, but usually the winners with Goodreads are not my personal favorites, so we'll see. But yeah, that's how my reading's going. Today is the 16th, by the way. Didn't say that, if you're interested. So, about half a month left. So it is the 19th of November and I have a ton of updates. Last night I finished 2 books, I started a new one and I also made progress in one. So let's get into it. The first book that I finished was my audiobook, Firekeeper's Daughter by Adeline Bully, I believe. This one is a murder mystery kind of story. It also involves some romantic tension. It has a little bit of a spy subplot, and it is set in an indigenous community, a Native American community in the US at the border to Canada. And I love this book. I gave it 5 stars. I think it is absolutely amazing, and I really hope they make this into a movie or a TV show because it's just so great. I really like the main character. She's a very headstrong girl, but she also is very considerate. She values her elders and her community and her family, and I just really like that aspect of the story because yeah, it's just very different from a lot of other books where maybe the family isn't even around, or you know, just these characters being very much on their own figuring stuff out. So this was a very different approach, focusing so much on the community aspect of it. I also really like the use of the language in the book. As I was listening to the audiobook, I can't really say whether the words were pronounced correctly because I don't know them, but I very much enjoyed the way that the language was used in this book. Just overall was very well done. I did like the romantic tension, and I just really loved where it went in the end. It was so good, and all the messages regarding like womanhood and you know, just feminism in that sense. Just amazing. I love this book. So yeah, if you haven't read it yet, I would highly recommend. It was so good. And then I started a new audiobook last night, which is One More Christmas at the Castle by Trisha Ashley. I did a whole video where I picked my next audiobook because I had a ton of new Christmassy romances on my wish list, and I thought, you know, I just do a little try a chapter challenge with that. And so there's a bird right outside the window. He's so cute. Oh. Oh no, he's gone. I have to refill the bird feeder. But yeah, this was the one that I chose in that video. So if you want to go and check it out, I think it was a very fun video. And yeah, so far just started it. I listened to half an hour of it already, and I will talk more about it when I get a little bit into the story. And then the next book I finished was The Five. This is one of the books I read for Nonfiction November, and I will do a separate vlog for that, so I won't talk about this much here, but I gave it 4.5 stars, really enjoyed it, again with the feminist themes, and I just really like historical nonfiction. It's just really good. And then the book I made progress on as well last night was Klara and the Sun. I read part 3, which was really good. I felt like part 3 was a little bit less exciting than the other 2 parts before it. But, you know, with parts 1 and 2, you kind of fall into this world that feels quite foreign, quite futuristic, and you don't really know what's going on because Klara is quite a clueless character, as she is an artificial intelligence and she has to learn about the world now. And so with part 3, I felt like it was moving the plot along a little bit more and not giving us many answers, but I'm still excited to continue reading this. It's definitely a very fascinating world and a very fascinating feel, and I just really like the kind of atmosphere and the scenes that are created in this book, especially with the barn in part 3. It was a scene that would be amazing as a visual as well, so maybe this will be made into a movie. I would really like that. And yeah, I'm now about 2/3 into it, not quite, but definitely more than halfway. And since I'm buddy reading this, I will wait for my partner to catch up with me to start reading part 4. And last update, the book I will start next is a German book. It's called Unterwegs zur Familie Speer. 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 And this is a historical nonfiction book as well. I've had this for years, like probably 10 years now. It has 7 ratings on Goodreads, but all of them are great. So I hope this will be interesting. This is a book that focuses on Albrecht Speer, who was a very famous Nazi, but one who wasn't really considered as being one of the really bad guys. Yeah, I think it talks about that. I think it talks about his involvement in a lot of the things that happened in the 30s and 40s in Germany, and how he was just lucky in a way that no one really understood his part, the part that he played and all of that. So yeah, this is a massive book. And I will read that for the separate reading vlog as well, so I'll probably just update you when I finish it. If I finish it, I'm a little bit intimidated. It's over 500 pages, so yeah, we'll see about that. So today is the 24th of November, one more month until Halloween, until Christmas. Oh no. I'm very tired. I had a great time the last few days, but I'm just super tired and I'm always running late, so I never really had the time to update this. But I'm now halfway through my audiobook, One More Christmas at the Castle. I am enjoying it. I think that the book I listened to last year by Trisha Ashley was still a little bit better for me personally. I think that Sabine is just a very cool character, and even though we get a few glimpses of her perspective, I just feel like she's a bit cold, you know. She could be a little bit cozier, I don't know. But yeah, I'm really intrigued to see how the whole family dynamic will work out. There have been a few like romantic moments now which I enjoyed. I do like the probable love interest of Zan. I think he is a very kind character. I also like that these two characters that will probably end up together are both in their 30s, so they're already a little bit older, right in the middle of their lives, I guess, and I really enjoy that. I do enjoy all the Christmas preparation stuff that is going on in the book, but yeah, I'm very excited to just keep listening to it. It's definitely putting me in the Christmas spirit, and it's very cozy. And then we also went to see the new Ghostbusters movie. In Germany it's called Afterlife. I'm not quite sure. Sometimes they change the titles around. But it was so good. I had a great time. We had just rewatched the 2 old Ghostbusters movies in the beginning of November. And it was just everything. This movie was so good. If you do like the Ghostbusters movies, I do think you will have a great time with these. They combine a lot of the things that I like. I think that the actress, I think her name is McKenna Grace, that is like the main character. She is amazing. I absolutely loved it and I had such a great time. Also, it was a very big cinema and we were 8 people, which is pretty crazy, obviously because of the spikes in the numbers of COVID. A lot of people don't go out anymore, but yeah, it was very impressive to see it in action, kind of, but because there wasn't really any people there, we felt very safe, which was great, and we had a good time watching that movie, so yeah, highly recommend if you are at all interested. And now I have to run to get my bus as always because I'm running late. But yeah, that's what I've been up to. So today is the 1st of December and this marks the end of my reading vlog. This one has been a little bit boring, I think, because most of what I read for a separate reading vlog. But, you know, November has been a little bit of a harder month for me with, you know, COVID being really bad here again and also some other personal things. So I still feel good with the amount that I've read, but I really thought it would be more so that this vlog would be a little bit more interesting. Now, the final thing I really have to update you on is that I finished Unterwegs zur Familie Speer. So this I read for that separate reading vlog, but I finished it a couple of days ago and decided to give it 4 stars. I think when I upload this, the vlog will already be up, so you can go and check it out. And then last night I started a new book that I will be reading in December. It's a buddy read with a friend, and that is The Overstory by Richard Powers. This also won the Pulitzer Prize. So yeah, I don't really know what to expect. I only read the first 8 pages last night before going to bed, so I can't really talk about it yet, but I'll keep you updated in the December vlog. I'm not quite sure how much more reading I will be doing this year. December is always a busy month, so we'll see about that. With my audiobook, One More Christmas at the Castle, I still have about 3 hours left, so that one I will also finish in December, which is probably fitting because, you know, Christmas time, but I really am enjoying it. I still think I liked last year's book by Trisha Ashley more, but it still has a lot of cozy vibes, and I do like the main character and the main couple a lot. Maybe one update I wanted to give here, because I think I've mentioned it before, the business partner / best friend of the main character is gay, and I was afraid that he would be just on the sidelines, kind of cheering the main character on, but he actually does get a little bit of his own romance, even though it is added in very far towards the end of the book and it's not really explored. But it's just nice, you know, because we're all over the gay best friend who doesn't get a love life of their own. So I'm happy about that, even though it could have been integrated into the story a little bit more. But yeah, that's it. That was the vlog. Now we go into the wrap-up bit. So welcome to the wrap-up part of the video. Let's take a look at all the books I have read in November. The first book I finished in November is Deathless Divide by Justina Ireland. This is a YA fantasy book about a zombie plague. This is an alternate history, so it is basically set during the time after the Civil War. The Civil War has ended, but then the zombie apocalypse has basically started. And so white people had the idea to create these comics combat schools where Black and Indigenous children were trained to kill zombies and to protect white people. So this is a duology. This is the second book and the finale, and as you can tell from the description of the book, this deals with racism as well as, you know, just growing up in an apocalyptic world. This second book was a bit of a letdown for me. I already talked about it in some vlog bits in October and November. It's been a while, so let me try to gather my thoughts. But basically, this book started out really strong. We basically start out from exactly the point where we left off in the first book, even though both books have kind of a closed off story, so you can read them on their own basically. They still have connections obviously, and so we start out right where we left off and travel again with the main character. Her name is Jane, and her friend Catherine. And in this book, the special thing is that Catherine gets chapters as well, so we switch perspectives every 2 chapters, which we did not do in the first book, and which is an addition that I really enjoyed. Now, the beginning of this book was amazing. What I really loved about the first book is the pace. It was so fast paced, and still you got some character development and, you know, just getting to know the characters. So I really wasn't missing anything in the first book. I absolutely loved it. With this one, the pace was really strong as well in the beginning. And this would have gladly been another 5-star read, but in the middle of the book there is a time jump of 1.5 years, and I did not vibe with that. I completely felt alienated from the characters after that, because we basically leave them at a time point where a lot of things are changing and there's like some really dramatic stuff going on, and we just leave them there, and then we get back to them 1.5 years later and they have changed very much. Like, their relationships have changed, their character has changed, and it just felt like I was missing a book, you know, like I had read the first book and now I'm jumping into the third book without reading the second book. That's just how it felt. And I just could not get over it. So the second half of this book definitely dragged everything down for me, and I just couldn't really get back into it. Took me a very long time. So I think in the end I gave this 4 stars. I would still really highly recommend this series, because you get 1.5 books that are amazing and then half a book that is still good, but just, you know, it could have been so great. So I was a bit disappointed. The other thing with this book to keep in mind is that this second book deals with the topic of vaccinations. Now, obviously, this was written before the kind of state we're in right now, where a lot of people are not getting vaccinated and risking their lives and lives of others because of that. And obviously, this has nothing to do with COVID, but since there is the zombie plague, it deals with the idea of a vaccination against turning into a zombie when you get killed. And just the discussions of that felt a bit weird reading it now in the situation we're in right now. That has nothing to do with the book or the author, just everything with the situation right now. And I wanted to make that clear, that maybe if this is a bit of a touchy subject, because maybe you have people in your family that don't want to get vaccinated, and then I believe this wouldn't be the best book to read right now. But yeah, just putting it out there. Then the next book I finished in November was my audiobook Payback's a Witch by Lana Harper. And this one brought me so much joy. It was the perfect book to transition from like the spooky October vibes into the more cozy feel of November and the holiday season. So this book was really good at the time that I listened to it. It basically follows a kind of witch. don't know why that took me so long. It follows a witch, and she has left her hometown to make a career for herself. But her parents asked her to come back for a while so she can host this kind of magical tournament, and this tournament will decide who will rule this witchy town for the next generation. And there's 4 families in this town, and they all have kind of different magics, and the idea is that the strongest witch will win this tournament. And the main character's family has always been the kind of weakest family in their magic, and that's something that the main character had a very hard time with, and she always felt like she wanted to prove herself more. And that is the kind of plot frame. But then the relationship frame is that the main character had been with one of the heirs of one of the families, and he had then basically broken up with her, which she didn't really take that well. And later on he had a kind of double thing going on with her best friend and then another girl. And so when the main character comes back to her town, she learns of this betrayal, and she starts to fall for the other girl that he betrayed. And so yeah, it's a female-female romance, which I very much enjoy. And I just had an amazing time with this audiobook. What I really didn't expect and really liked was that the plot was actually quite strong as well. It wasn't only about the kind of relationship stuff. I thought that the tournament was really interesting as well. So I gave it 4 stars in the end, and I really liked it. Then I finished my first non-fiction read of the month, and that was Pompeii, The Life of a Roman Town by Mary Beard. And I'm obsessed with Roman life. I studied Latin in school, and I always just really liked the ancient world, and especially Rome. So this was a book that happened on my wishlist for a while, and then I finally got it for my birthday this year. This is a look at what we can gather from the remains of Pompeii. If you don't know, Pompeii was a Roman town that was destroyed when a volcano broke out, basically. And because of that, there is a lot of stuff that was preserved quite well in the ashes, and yeah, it's just super interesting. Now, I gave this book 4 stars. I thought that the kind of information level was really well done. You get a lot of information, but it's not too detailed to become boring. The only thing that I could have wished for more was a look at how we get this knowledge, like how do the archaeologists work to figure these things out. That would have been something that had intrigued me even more. And then also, this book is, I think, from 2008 or something like that. So there have been a lot more discoveries since then, and I feel like getting an updated version of this would be super interesting as well. But what I really liked is that this really focuses on the daily lives of people and not on like a big history of Roman times or something like that, because that's something I'm just really interested in history, the way people just lived basically. And Mary Beard is also a little bit snarky. She does have these comments like, yeah, some of her colleagues would think that this and this is the explanation for something, but that really doesn't make a lot of sense to her and stuff like that. So she also critiques some of the stuff that is going on in research there. So overall, very enjoyable, 4 stars, would highly recommend if you're interested. And then the next non-fiction book I finished was The Five, The Untold Lives of the Women Killed by Jack the Ripper by Hallie Rubenhold. Again, a book that had been on my wishlist for a while, and I got it for my birthday this year. And this is obviously looking at London in 1888, and specifically at 5 women at the time who lived in poverty and were probably homeless for the most part, and then were killed by Jack the Ripper. And the main goal of this book is to kind of go against the stigma that Jack the Ripper killed prostitutes, because the author Hallie Rubenhold thinks that these women probably weren't all prostitutes, and that the connecting thing is rather that they lived in poverty and were homeless. And yeah, this was really interesting. You have 5 women: Polly, Annie, Elizabeth, Catherine, and Mary Jane. And what I really liked about this book is the way that it really looked at life and womanhood in this time period, and especially living in poverty. Even though not all of these women were born in poverty, they all had something happen that kind of pushed them over the edge. And yeah, it was just really interesting. I feel like the story of Polly was the one that affected me the most. It just felt really hopeless, and like she didn't really have anyone to care for her or take care of her, and that was just so sad. Like, I can't even imagine the sadness that Polly must have felt about her life. But yeah, all of these stories obviously don't have a happy ending, so you should know that going into it. And I always say stories. It's obviously not fictional stories. It is what we know about the lives of these women and how things would have worked at the time. So this is a very well-researched book about this time period as well. And as I said, the kind of intersection of poverty and womanhood at the time, I think a very important read. So I decided to give this a 4.5 stars. Could there have been things done better? I'm not quite sure. I feel like sometimes it read a little bit too much like stories and not enough like actual, you know, history. So maybe that. But yeah, I just really like this book, and I think it's a great read. And then I finished my next audiobook, which was The Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Bully. And this book is amazing, absolutely fantastic. It just won one of the Goodreads awards, and I couldn't be happier about that. I gave it 5 stars. The Firekeeper's Daughter, I always thought it was fantasy because of the cover, but it's actually more of a thriller or mystery book. It follows a girl, and it is written by an Indigenous author as well. And so this girl has a white mother, but her father was Native American, and she lives very close to the border to Canada in the US. And so this basically follows a police investigation into her community because they suspect that someone is dealing with meth and kind of changing it, adding something more to it that makes it even more addictive. And she's kind of pulled into that investigation, and I've just seen a review of this book. I will link the video down below because it was so good. Like, I could never do this book justice, but that review was so well done. So I will link it down below. If you don't want to read the book after that review, I don't know what you're doing with your life. But basically, everything about this book was amazing. So sorry, I just get interrupted because I received one of my Christmas gifts very early. She gets sucked into this police investigation. I just really love the main character because she is very strong-minded. She has a very strong belief how she sees the world and her community, and she's really trying to protect her community, and is kind of in that struggle between, you know, the meth addiction destroying her community, but then the FBI also not being great and destroying things. So she's in the middle of that, trying to find a balance with that. And I just really loved this book. I thought the mystery was amazing. One thing I really don't like about these kind of YA crime thriller mystery books is when there's nothing at stake and you just feel like they're just solving a cold case or something like that. But this one had such high stakes. It was so well done. There's also a bit of a romantic relationship, which I really enjoyed. It was a lot of back and forth. So, but I thought totally warranted. I just loved this book. It was amazing. Like every single page of this book was perfect. So yeah, I hope more people read it. It did win the Goodreads Choice Award, so I guess a lot of people have already read it, but I still want more people to read it. And the last book I finished in November was a German book, Unterwegs zur Familie Speer by Heinrich Brelohr. I never know how to say his last name. This is a collection of interviews with people who knew Albert Speer. He was a very famous architect in the Nazi regime, but he was also involved in politics during that time. And this book basically deals with the question how far he was involved in like the Holocaust. What did he know? What was his position in this system? And during the Nürnberger Prozesse, he was not sentenced to death. He was sentenced to 20 years of prison, which he actually did. He was in prison for 20 years. And after he was released, he was kind of traveling through Germany, doing talks and stuff like that. Kind of like a witness of the time, talking about how everything could have gotten so far. But what we learn through these interviews is basically that he knew much more than he ever let on. I think he died in the 80s. So yeah, it was just very interesting to see that. But besides that, I also learned a lot about the New Germany, like the post-war Germany. I am from the eastern part of Germany, so I grew up, or I was born right after Germany was reunited. So for me, I don't really have a lot of connection to the history of the western part of Germany. I learned a little bit of it in school, obviously, but I just learned so much more reading this book, to be honest. Like, yeah, I just thought it was very interesting. You definitely get the feeling that a lot of the elite of post-war Germany was, you know, still the elite that existed during the war. There hadn't really been a lot of changes. Like, obviously, those were the children of the people who were the elite, but they were still like very privileged in comparison to other people. Yeah, it was just very interesting to read about that. Did I need a 500-page book about that? I don't know. But since I had bought it like over 10 years ago, I thought, you know, I might as well read it now. And I did learn a lot. I gave it 4 stars. I think it was very interesting. I don't think I will ever reread it, but it definitely gave me a new perspective on this whole thing. So that's everything I have finished in November. Let me know what your favorite read of November was. For me, it was definitely The Firekeeper's Daughter, and I would love to hear how your reading's going. So let me know down below, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!